Hey, what's going on, everybody? Echo Side Fiend here. Over the last week or so at work, I've been listening to the Violent J Behind the Paint audiobook. I have owned it since it came out. A friend of mine, my buddy Tom from England, actually picked it up for me at the gathering. I had listened to it once before, but I hadn't listened to it like really deeply. I just kind of had it on when I was doing other stuff. And now that it's on YouTube, I've been listening to it on route at work. And I'm on, I think like chapter 22 now. So a lot of that extra stuff that he's been adding in, I obviously heard it, but I wasn't listening to it fully. Now I'm driving and I'm listening, concentrating on it and listening to it. Just yesterday, I got to the chapter, I forget exactly what chapter it is, but when he's talking about playing at Woodstock 99. And that made me recall this really fucking funny like hater story that happened to me in like I'm gonna say probably like 2002, somewhere along in there. And I'm sure everybody has like some really funny like hater stories where people are just straight up fucking lying, trying to make you think ICP or punks or bitches or whatever. I've had several. In fact, I've kind of thought about doing like a little series of videos, like sharing some of them. I've had some happen just as recently as just a couple of years ago. But I want to talk about this one that happened to me. I think, like I said, I'm going to say in like 2002, maybe 2003. So this is just, I think this is just hilarious. And at the time when this happened, I think the guy who was telling me this, it was nobody I knew. It was like a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing. I think he didn't realize that sometime down the line, I would totally be able to fact check this. So I want to get into this because it might take me a little while. Okay, so first of all, I do want to point out, I don't remember if him telling me the story that he told me happened first or if I read Violent J's Behind the Paint first. I forget which, but it really doesn't matter. I just got two conflicting stories. So I'm just going to start with him telling me this story. So me and my buddy Eric were out driving around at the time. This was during the day. It was during warm weather. And I think we were heading somewhere, I forget where, but we were driving by right by one of his buddy's houses, a guy I didn't know. We were driving by and he's like, I think the guy's name was Tim, I think as well. Eric looked up and he's like, oh, hey, it looks like they're out there, cooking up and having some beers. Let's go up and say hi. I'm like, all right, cool. So I whipped around. I was driving. We were in my car. And so I pulled back up to this guy's house and, jumped out. And at the time I was driving, I had a 98 Plymouth Breeze. And on the front of it, when I bought the car, I bought it used, and I bought it and it had a license plate holder on the front already. And so I ordered off of Hatchet Gear like a vanity license plate. I still have it around somewhere. I don't know exactly what I did with it, but it's either here or at my folks' house. This is like a metal license plate. Just had a Hatchet Man, just said Psychopathic Records, kind of that bow tie logo style. And I had that on the front of my car. So we're sitting there and just chit-chatting and everything. And then another guy pulls up. And this guy, I have no idea. The other one, like I said, I think his name was Tim. That sounds right. And then this other guy pulled up. And another guy that Eric knew. And so he comes walking up and, Eric, introduces us and he, sits down. And then he's like, hey, that car over there with Psychopathic Records, is that the record company you're on? He said that to Eric because Eric was in a band, which was, they were a heavy metal band. He was the drummer. They were called Kuru, and they were really big around here in Grand Rapids. They actually did some touring too, like just kind of like around the region, but they would be gone for like, a few days at a time playing shows, all along the way. They got, pretty good size for just a local band. And they parted ways, though. They're not together anymore. But so he said that to Eric. He's like, is that the record company you're on? And he's like, oh, no, that's Timmy's car. And it's he's a big fan of ICP, and that's their label. And he's like, oh, like that, and I was like, what? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I think they suck. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. They're not for everybody. And then he's like, kind of chuckles. He's like, man, I'll never forget when they played at Woodstock 99. And I was like, oh, yeah? And I'm like, did you see him? And he's like, well, I walked past him. And he's like, I felt really bad for him. And I'm like, why is that? And he's like, oh, they were playing on this little fucking side stage. And he's like, there was maybe 50 people watching him. And I'm like, 50 people watching ICP at a fucking concert that like 250, 300,000 people attended? And he's like, yeah, they were just like literally on a stage, like where you're walking through like where all the vendors were and stuff. And they just had this little side stage and they were just playing on that. And he's like, there was like 50 people and most of them were just coming and going, nobody was even standing and watching them. I'm like, okay. you know, in 1999, you know, when they were, you know, huge. I mean, obviously the ICP is still huge, but when they were like, you know, in the mainstream type of huge, I'm like 50 people watching him, huh? And he's like, yeah, it was hilarious. He's like, I felt so bad for him, but whatever, they suck. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And I just kind of let it go. And so that was pretty much the end of that. And then, so I'm going to say I probably maybe read, because I bought Violent J's book right when it came out. So I can't remember if again, I guess it really doesn't matter. But so then in the book, you know, in Violent J's book, he's discussing playing there, and he's talking about, yeah, you know, 50,000 people watching him. The stage is massive, you know, and, you know, obviously kicking the beach balls out. And he's talking about the sound traveling over the fucking crowd. You know, you'd see them put their hands up. And I remember he made some type of statement about how, like, you could see literally like a river of people at the back, like flowing into where they were playing. And so as I heard that guy's story and, you know, read Violent J's book, again, not sure which one I had happen first, but regardless, as I'm getting the two conflicting stories, I'm like, well, somebody here isn't telling the truth. And obviously I'm going to more go with Violent J being the one who is telling the truth, because he's putting it in a book that, you know, millions of people are probably going to read, at least hundreds and hundreds of thousands at the least, I should say, at the least are going to be reading it. So this is something that you're going to be able to fact check, you know. And but this is also, YouTube was around at this time, but it wasn't like it is now. So I couldn't just go, because the Woodstock performance is on YouTube. And in fact, I'll link that down below if you haven't seen it. It's really cool. So this wasn't just, you know, internet was still kind of in its infancy, you know. So, and I didn't have internet. This is before smartphones. I couldn't just go and look it up. I pretty much just kind of forgot about it, you know. Didn't really think much more about it. I was, you know, 99.9% certain that guy was full of shit, you know. And so fast forward to maybe like 2006, 7, somewhere along in there. At my work, the company I still work for, I was in a different position at the time. I was running all this machinery where we wash and dry all we're a uniform supply company, Cintas. And we wash and dry all the uniforms, mats, towels, all that stuff. It's all automated. It's a fully automated thing. I wasn't in there hand loading shit, you know, pouring in soap and stuff. It's all automated. But it was a pretty complicated process, you know, and we didn't have anybody trained to back up, you know, to be a backup if I called in sick or if I needed a vacation day. So at some point down the line, I guess management was like, well, you know, Tim might want to take some time off, so maybe we better have somebody trained to cover. So they put this guy, Scott, who worked in like truck loading and unloading. They put him over with me for a couple weeks to learn the watch LA to be able to cover if anything ever came up. So I'm training him, and it's super cool guy. We ended up having a ton of mutual interests in music and video games. He was actually a couple years older than me. But yeah, super cool dude, but he did not like ICP. He fucking hated him. But, you know, right off the bat, we were talking about music, and I was like, oh, I love ICP. He's like, God, I can't stand them. You know, I'm like, you know, whatever, it's cool. You know, he's like, I don't know, they're just not for me. But then we started talking about other music. We had all kinds of music in common. About the only thing we didn't really agree on was he was a huge sports and NASCAR fan. I'm not. And I also love pro wrestling, and he didn't like pro wrestling. But regardless, we had a lot of common interests. And so as we're talking about ICP, I'm like, yeah, you know, they're not for everybody. And he's like, well, I'll give you, he's like, they do put on a good show. He's like, I saw them at Woodstock 99. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, you went to Woodstock 99? And he's like, I did. Me and my brother went. And I'm like, okay, so you watched ICP? And he's like, yeah, we did. We didn't really know a whole lot about him, so we went and watched him. And he's like, not my style of music. But he's like, they did put on a pretty entertaining stage show. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, let me tell you this. And I recounted the story of the guy telling me that they played in front of like maybe 50 people on a little tiny side stage over in the vendor area and all this stuff. And like, Scott's just looking at me and he goes, 50 people? I'm like, yeah, that's what he said. And he's like, you sure he didn't say like 50,000? Because that's about what it was. And I'm like, no, he said it was on this little side stage over, among all the food vendors and all this stuff. And he's like, dude, they played on like the third biggest fucking stage at the place, man. And he's like, he even said pretty much like what I was thinking. He's like, even the shittiest, smallest band there's no way they play it in front of any less than like about 10,000 people, you know? And he's like, dude, there was like 300,000 people there. Nobody played in front of 50 fucking people, you know? And again, this was, Scott, who did not like ICP. He could have easily just been like, yeah, there's like, I don't know, maybe like a couple hundred, maybe. But no, he's like, dude, they played in front of like 50,000 fucking people. People were going fucking crazy. He's like, there's people crowd surfing, stage, getting up on the. I know the stage was set way back, and if you watch it, you'll see. But he's like, people are climbing up on the barrier and stage diving, it's jumping back into the crowd. And he's like, 50 fucking people, my ass, dude. He's like, they played in front of like 50 or 60,000 people, and he's like, me and my brother watched the whole show. He's like, there was at no point was there any less than like 50,000 people, And he's like, yeah, he's like, your friend was full of shit. And I was like, it's not my friend. Just some guy I just ran into. He's like, well, he fucking lied to you. I'm like, he probably didn't even go. He probably wasn't even at Woodstock 99. But I don't know. He probably was. But, it's just kind of, I just thought that was fucking hilarious. And then also a little bit farther down the line, my buddy Josh, who I've mentioned before, who moved for his job when he was getting rid of all of, not all of his CDs, but a lot of his CDs, backed them all up on like a hard drive and all that. And because he was moving, when I went and grabbed a few ICP stuff, CDs that I didn't have, he had a videotape copy of the pay-per-view. If you remember, you could get it on pay-per-view. And somebody, not Josh, but somebody somewhere just bought the pay-per-view, recorded it, and through the Woodstock 99 performance, I'm sure they probably did it for other bands too, but he got the ICP one, literally just pressed it up on a tape. It was like a label on it, like with their logo and everything. And then they just used like some stock photos, like from the internet, photos of ICP, but just like stuff from the internet. Made like a cover. They made a track list on the back. Totally bootleg, but it was really cool. It was really neat. And Josh found it at like a used record store. He paid like $3 for it, And so when I was over there grabbing some stuff, he was like, oh, hey, do you want this too? And he gave that to me. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So that was the first time I saw it. I brought it home that night and I watched it and pretty much validated that guy that told me they played on a little fucking side stage in front of like 50 people that were coming and going was not exactly true. So I don't know. I just always thought that was so fucking funny. I mean, this dude, when he was telling me too, you have to understand, he was so fucking dead serious. He was like absolutely 100% serious, just icy glare, like, no, they played in front of like 50 people and nobody was even staying. People were coming and going, And, he wanted it to be true. Like he was trying to speak it into reality, and it turned out it was not true. So obviously ICP played in front of a huge crowd. Whether all of them turned into juggalos or there was a ton of juggalos, I don't know. I can't confirm, but they played in front of a lot more than 50 people, and we can see that, obviously on YouTube now and whatnot. So it was really funny. It was a funny story. I've got a lot of funny fucking stories, of haters, because I get a lot, among my circle of friends. I obviously have some Juggalo friends, but in my extended circle of friends and my old friends, like my skater crew and my old metalhead friends, a lot of punk friends and stuff, I'm the only one that likes ICP, and most of my friends don't give a shit. They're like, whatever, you're into ICP in a band, I'm not. But and then of course I'll meet their other friends, and that's where a lot of that comes from. Is I'll be hanging out with somebody who, a friend of mine, and then like an extended friend of theirs that I don't know will be like, oh, you like ICP, and fucking start going on, So that's where I get a lot of the good stories from. So I might have to share a few more because I got some good ones, but I gotta like recollect them. I gotta like think back and like put all the pieces together and everything so I can tell them in their entirety. So that's pretty much all for that one. Again, I confirmed that the story was bullshit, and I think anybody who has obviously seen the YouTube video or was there or whatever can obviously agree that he was stretching the truth just a little bit. So that'll be pretty much wrap it up for that one. So I hope you got a kick out of it, because I still do, get looking back on it. And I'm glad that audiobook chapter kind of jogged my memory, because that was a funny one. As I was still driving, I was kind of recalling it and putting it all together. I was like, oh man, I got to share that one. So do you have any good stories, any good hater stories, that turned out to be lies or even just ridiculous stories? If you do, share them in the comments or make a response video. So I'll put a link for, I know there's a couple different versions of the Woodstock 99 performance. I'll just put them both in there. I don't remember which one is. I've got them both like in a playlist. I don't remember if like one is better quality or not. So I'll just stick them both in there and you can check them out if you haven't. So otherwise, this is Timmy, aka Echo Side Fiend. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. Make sure to check out Carnival Spirits. Check out carnivalspirits.com too. Beastmaster just updated all of it with all the new crew members, and it's really cool. So As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.